The boardroom is on mute. Thank you.
In the spirit of respect, truth, and reconciliation, we honor and thank the Indigenous peoples on whose traditional and unceded lands we operate. The agenda is before you. I would look for a motion to refer the agenda as written. Thank you, Richard, and seconded by Grace. Any questions? None. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of the minutes from May the 7th. Thank you, Grace. Seconded by Sharon. Any regarding the minutes? Okay, all those in favor? Member delegations, futures. Sorry, boundary. There. Corporate.
I think we've got a couple slides. So the spirit. That's okay. They're not super fancy, so I can just read through them if we can. We save the thought.
Please carry.
So I think Jennifer and myself were here 2 meetings ago, just to talk about the Reddit fund and where we were at with that. Since we were here, the announcement, the province has publicly announced that DKB has received $500 million. Just quickly reviewing what has actually been it because it was all for an application in December. So economic capacity building. So this is like an EDO officer equivalent for Midway and Greenwood, and advanced and shovel-ready projects. The boundary-wide investment portal, so something similar to what Invest Grand Forks was, but for the boundary. And various business and entrepreneurial supports over the next 2 years for existing and new businesses in the area. So Community Futures is entering into a project management contract with the regional district. James said he's signing that tomorrow. So next steps, Community Futures is going to work towards getting some of these things up and running as quickly as possible because the funding does have to be used up within 2 years. I think the deadline, I don't know if it's I received too much information from the province, but probably December 7th is the deadline. So really quickly, a couple of the first things we're going to do is work with Greenwood and Midway for the EDO job posting. I'm hoping to meet with each municipality next week and get this posted and filled. And there's some room for adjustment there because I know it's hard to find people right now, so we'll see how that goes. Meeting with economic development service providers. So those are the organizations in the boundary that are meeting. Next. We'll get that posted. This will be the site for 2 years, job investments and citizen attraction to the area. Yeah, and then the business and entrepreneurial supports. I've already been in touch with Christina like Gateway, Tracy, and the Chamber of Commerce. Contribution program up and going at the funding for that. And then looking at a 24-month plan for business development courses. So we're going to take a lot of feedback from businesses and entrepreneurs about what they want. I know there was some requests for things to do with like agriculture or tourism. So that would be business driven. To use to support our business. Fantastic.
Sarah, could you please speak up?
Which part did you miss?
I got most of it, but it's just, I have to strain to hear you.
I don't. Who is that?
Larry Olson.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, I guess we should identify who's on screen here too. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, so that's just our quick next steps to get the funding going. Larry, I don't know if you have anything to add from the province's side.
We're quite excited to get this off the ground. One thing I would hope that would happen is that I'm included in any of the meetings, including the ones with the different service areas, Greenwood and Midway. One question I do have is, you're going to be meeting with these groups to look at potential projects, but do you have an idea of how much of the $500,000 plus will be available to, and speaking to your second point, which is advanced shovel-ready projects?
Yeah. I think for building economic capacity, it was it $20,000 or $80,000? I think it was 80,000.
Out of the 500 and, okay.
Yeah.
And that's to help fund projects put forward by the different communities?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the province gives us a lot of guidelines around what we can use that for, so we're going to create some.
Sure.
Yeah, because we want to make sure that it's going to things that fit within the boundary diversification plan.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And do you know when you'll be having those initial meetings with the service providers?
Not yet.
Okay, just keep me posted. That'd be great. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Larry.
You bet.
Any other questions? Any questions for Sarah, particularly? Richard, go ahead.
Sarah, we've got a council meeting next Monday.
Yeah.
If you could make.
I can't. I'm on my way to the Rural BC thing.
Okay. Because we're every 3 weeks, so that'll push it.
But you know what? I can zoom in. I'll talk to Lisa.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Any other questions? Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate you coming in. Exciting times for Greenwood and Midway by the sounds of it. That's good. Our neighbors? Okay. New business. Jacob McFarland, Deputy Fire Chief? I'm thinking Fire Chief. Okay, Fire Chief. That's what I thought. Christina Lake, work plan.
On service.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through our chair. Yeah, sorry for any confusion. So the report was written by Deputy Christina Lake, Jacob, because that was all done last week. Then we can introduce Hot arriving in the seat Monday. So he wasn't here last week to write the report. Is Tom Service, our new fire chief for Christina Lake. So Tom joining us today, thrown into this pretty quickly. So I can speak briefly to the work plan, unless Tom would like to, but ultimately we wanted to introduce Tom to everyone.
Would be nice if Tom got to say what some plans are that he's gonna do with Christina.
Yeah, so the big piece in that at the beginning was just that change in leadership. So right now the big focus is keeping that continuity of operations and then going through and developing those relationships with the leadership team and the rest of the firefighters as well. Then branching off of that, really the big project is the work experience programs. So year one of that, and it's been quite successful so far. The one person that we have currently is doing excellent. And our second one is going to be coming in on Friday, starting next week. So there's been some really great benefits coming from that. A lot of learning and growth from that person, the first work experience firefighter, and they're going to be, or they are now, coming on calls and providing or running that value for us. So big success in that regard. That more or less takes care of the project's components. Just below the 60 mark at the time of submitting the report. A couple more on top of that from that time. And in terms of anything planned in the capital sense, there's nothing planned at this time. So nothing to report in that.
All right. Director, do you have anything to add to your?
I had lunch with the chief yesterday, very happy, and Yeah, you get along well, very good.
That's great. Webster, we have students in Grand Forks, and they've been phenomenal. The four we've had have gone on. The last group went on and got all hired and are out enjoying. Now we got a new set, and that's good. So you'll come to appreciate them. I know we have. So okay, any questions from the rest of the directors? Welcome. Yes, welcome. Yes. All right. So could I have receive the report?
Well, great.
Thank you, Grace. Seconded by Linda Kay. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. All right. Josh Foster, Big White Fire Chief.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Nice to see you all remotely here. Pretty quick update from me. We're on track with all of our plans as initially presented in our work plan. Our work experience program, it's the 24th year of it. Our crew has just started this week. Actually, well, they started over the weekend with a structure protection course as part of our wildland training program. We've got 8 work experience firefighters this year, 4 men and 4 women. So really good balance there, and they're doing great so far. A big staff adjustment for us. We've brought on board our new deputy chief of life safety and prevention. That was a fairly lengthy recruiting effort, but we landed with one of our existing firefighters, which is great. And he's been in the position now for about a month, so he's hit the ground running and doing great work. So all of that is going well from a staffing perspective. As far as our capital plans, new brush truck that replaces our truck where the pump failed last year. That truck went to Beaverdale with the pump removed from it. They're using it as a support vehicle, but that new brush truck for us should be delivered by the end of this month, so we'll have it for the fire season. The fire hydrant maintenance agreement, that you may recall, that's always been a bit of a placeholder for us. That's something that we're working with the utility here at Big White, which is one of the remaining privately owned utilities. So there's some challenges with moving that forward, but it is something that's going to be on our radar until we can remove that from our budget. Development of the training facility continues. That's ongoing. Fire safety bylaw, that's ongoing as well. Completed our generator backup project and just received notice that our UBCM grant money has been sent, so that's paid for, and we're working on continuing with our wildfire focus here as something really front of mind for us. We've got our community cleanup coming up on the 21st and 22nd weekend, where we are once again going to push a fire smarting initiative in conjunction with the EM program out of the RDKB. So looking forward to a great event that weekend. And that's really what's on our radar right now.
Excellent. Director, anything to add?
Nothing to add, just a couple questions, Josh.
Yeah.
Do you think the new bush truck will be there by the 21st? Do you have a solid date, or is it still tentative right now?
Well, I'm supposed to see it next week at the Fire Chiefs Conference in Penticton. But we've one of the features on this truck is a bumper-mounted monitor, which gives it the capacity of what they call pump and roll. So we can drive the truck and flow water at the same time out of a essentially a what's known sometimes as a deck gun, where we've got a joystick in the cab of the truck, and we can aim the nozzle off of the bumper. Well, that element is delayed a little bit. So I think what happens is the truck will be in Penticton almost complete. It'll go back to the island, and then while that monitor piece gets installed mid-month, and then we'll see it by the end of the month. I'm hoping that it might be there for the weekend. I really, really hope that it does make it, and the manufacturer knows the importance of that deadline, but they're kind of hands tied with the supply chain issue here and getting that element delivered.
That makes sense. And another question regarding Beaverdale training, how is that going?
That's going great. They've had a pretty decent turnout, fairly steady. They've got a core group of firefighters there that are doing really, really well and attending as much of the training as possible. Our Captain Boucher has gone down there to facilitate that training. I've been down a couple of times myself, helping with the evaluations too, and they're moving through the exterior operations level firefighter training program, and it's going quite good. I'm actually headed into Kelowna today to look at an ambulance for them to replace their the long out of service rescue truck. So that project is coming along too. I don't know if James had intended to speak to that in his work plan presentation for Beaverdale, but that's all going quite well.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate all your work, Josh. Thank you. A motion to accept the report.
Secondary?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unopposed? Carried.
Can I ask why we can't see anything in this? Is that a stupid question? I just wondering whether that's any technical difficulties.
It's me and my computer, and
I'll forgive you.
thanks.
Because anything than that.
And
Yeah. Remember, this meeting is being recorded.
That's exactly why
I know,
that's exactly
Grace.
why I said
I
it.
saw it.
Yeah.
You're right. All right. There we go.
Ah, there's people.
I see names.
so you do that. Is the main screen still big enough
Yep.
for you all? There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, James.
Oh, there's the one.
The very bottom.
We're both too short.
I some particular.
All right, moving along, Grand Forks Rural Fire Protection. Chandler,
And
manager.
Chief.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you stuck there.
Your party.
Sorry, Chief. You're blended into the background there, so.
Yeah, and so thanks, Rich, for joining us today. We've got a few projects on, and I'll let Rich jump in.
Yeah, why don't I just kind of give you some stuff that's not on, and then you can take it away with this portion, which is all absolutely correct. A lot of similar stuff that we have going on in our departments. We had 4 work experienced firefighters. We're down to 3. One decided to go back to Saskatchewan and go back to wildfire, so he got his old job back. And he was very clear on that when he was hired, that might be something he was interested in doing. And we're not going to deny anybody going to do what they're passionate and want to do. We also have a new deputy of fire prevention and life safety. And this is his 2nd week, and that's Morgan Stroman. Some of you might know him. He worked for the city of Grand Forks doing IT, but he also worked for the school district. He was doing both. So really happy to have him. He was an internal hire. He's been a captain for a couple of years, and he's been on the department for 4 years and hit the ground running. We started our smoke alarm campaign. This is week number 2 in conjunction with the Office of the Fire Commissioner. I'm happy to say we're at around, what did they tell me last night? 80 smoke alarms we've put in people's homes in just shy of 2 weeks. And we're all over. We've got a really strong, passionate group from the North Fork Fire Hall that are working up in that area because they really know the people out there. It's going really well. And we're also doing that in conjunction with a new program. You might have heard of it. We're promoting it actually just made the paper this week, and it's called Community Connect, and it allows people to share critical information about their homes and their household, and then what they're willing to share. If we get a call at that home, that'll pop up on our screens, and and show us that critical information, so that we're more efficient in helping them out, if we have to. 2 of our 4 capital purchases, we've received. One was a new washer extractor, for our turnout gear, and the other one was our, communication enhancement, for our face pieces. Another thing that's been a dream of mine, since I've joined the department, was to have a fitness facility that we could be proud of, that would take us to the next level. And I'm happy to say we've accomplished it at the Carson Fire Hall. Again, shared on Facebook. It's a beautiful facility. And I mean, the uptake has been amazing on the firefighters that are now able to have a fitness facility 24/7. And the last piece is lots of conferences in our world. They're all up to Ticton this year. Our deputy of training operations attended the training officers conference. Unfortunately, Morgan was just short of when he got the role to attend the fire prevention conference, but he is going to be coming with me next week to fire chiefs conference, and he's going to get to attend the new fire chief session. And then the last piece that's just the icing on the cake is my band's playing on Tuesday night for the theme night. It's just to be able to play with my colleagues doesn't get much better than that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, do you have anything to add, James? No? Okay, thank you very much. Director, do you have anything?
Thank you for making time to be here today. I know things can go south in big hurries. Like, I hear good reports coming out of Brand Creek, because I talked to that group with reasonable frequency.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for the work you do.
My pleasure.
And Chief, we're right there with you. There's been good things happening for sure, so we're excited and look forward to what the next couple of years will bring. So, Linda Kay, would you move the receipt?
I will.
Thank you. Seconded by?
Thank you, Grace.
Grace? Any further questions for our chief?
Thanks for your time.
None, thank you.
Okay, take care. Have a good day.
Hopefully your truck starts. I got to bring that up. Sorry, I just came out of it. It just came out. Yeah, sorry about that.
Thanks.
I'll bring the camera.
Want to get a picture? Sure, it's fine.
All right, moving on. Kettle Valley Fire Protection. Chief, yeah.
For this one, very brief update. We don't have any projects this year, and I think this year is getting kind of grounded again with the service that keeps a good few months sort of into the role after the transition from their past chief. And at some point, as we look for the work plan next year, we've renewed the contract through the start of the year, but with the new chief's kind of feet kind of under the table, we'll have to spend some time and look at the future for the service and some of the interests around the expansion or limitation of services in the rural area. There will be on the horizon vehicles to be updated if we want to work on that, which are huge, as we all know, huge capital expenses. So nothing immediate. I know the service is kind of responding, well, doing what they need to do on an operational basis, and we'll have more planning work through the back half of this year.
Okay. Go ahead, Director.
A question for James. Next year, I'm not sure if it ties in with the service, but I'd like to have some meetings and discussions regarding Anakin Mountain Fire Department and what sort of working relationship we could get with them in City. Right now, it's it's a free page. Able to put some time aside to work on that next fall.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Would you like to move the report there, Director? Thank you, Sharon. Seconded by Richard. Any further questions for James? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. James Chandler, Beaverdale Fire Service.
And little bit more going on. We already touched on that with Chief Foster here, who between him and his team, we've supported with a quarter-time role, putting in regular training, which I think is a huge change and an update for Beaverdale this year. And as we briefly touched on with Josh, it's going as well as can be expected this year. And then a couple of projects, unfortunately, for a backup generator weren't successful in getting some funding. So we might be able to explore gas tax opportunities for that. We certainly would like to see Beaverdale Hall have emergency backup power to operate in all kinds of emergencies. Small project on lighting upgrade to come throughout the year. And the other one that we mentioned, we've been searching and searching. We might have found the first responder vehicle that really fits the requirements. And so, as Chief Foster said, he's also going down to Kelowna today to look at that unit, and then we'll see about how we can go through the steps of procuring it, some final due diligence to make sure it's got all its right badges and accreditations for use here in BC and with the fire service. But at the moment, it's looking good. It will come in well under the estimate that we've been carrying in the budget, which is great. And there's no reason that unit wouldn't serve us for a number of years ahead. So that could be a great success for the department and the community. Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Excellent. Director.
super happy with the Beaverdale department in the interaction with Big White and the work James done. Motion to accept the report.
Director Grace.
Through the chair to James. How does the Beaverdale Fire Department compare to the Oasis Fire Department, if you will? You're like Linda Oasis Fire Department that we do a lot of stuff with. How does Beaverdale, because it's not very big and it's doing pretty darn well. So I'm wondering how that compares body-wise, if you will, or to the other fire department.
Yeah. In a sense, I mean, I think we don't like the differences in that the Janelle Hall is a satellite hall to the larger service. So they've got very different model in that way. If you just look at the hall on its own, Beaverdale is, I think they've had to sustain themselves more because they don't have a career hall, another hall nearby. So they're on their own, other than Big White up the hill, but Big White is not on an every call response. So they stand at a little over 20 in membership. They're probably at around 6 or 7-ish. I'm getting regular turnout and training at the moment in the update that they're working with Big White. So they're hitting more numbers in attendance and so on than the Janelle Hall have been. And they have been up higher in those numbers. Their first responder calls, which is why we're looking at the ambulance, so probably 80+% of their requirements when the alarm goes off, and they're making all of those, right? And the issues that we saw in Janelle is more than 75% of the calls are being responded to from Trail because there is just no response from the hall. So quite a difference in just terms of membership and people in the hall and the building and responding. So Beaverdale are really doing well.
The point, I guess, is that might be a good messaging for Janelle, because literally they've got Trail pretty darn close, and they could have been doing the same kind of thing that Beaverdale has been doing with Josh at Big White. So that was my reason for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Is I think Beaverdale has done very well, and it's not easy. We all know that, but they've made a point of bringing their guys in, getting them trained with the help from Big White. So
yeah.
I just think that's a good example for us to hold in front of us on what can be done if you truly want to do that. So it'll be fascinating to see what Janelle ends up doing.
Mm-hmm.
A good message. Do you want to second this?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, Sharon, you had your hand up?
Just commending James on that one. It hasn't been easy. use your words. And there's been a lot of time and work gone into it, especially not just equipment and distance-wise and all of those things, but finding the right fit with the trainers and the staff and the youth and James and all the things, to the point that our last town hall was the previous person that is quite vocal at our town halls was actually, compliment. Yeah, and I'm super happy. So thanks for suggesting that about Janelle as well. Thank you.
Just, for context, because every hall is different, each service is different, but there's common challenges in it, and that is in the reliance on volunteers and the community. In each community is different, so we can't do it without the people being there, which is I think the big shift to support with getting the right equipment and vehicles so the community can feel engaged with it as well. So we hope this ambulance has worked out. By their society had fundraised over $30,000 to help support getting a vehicle, so we can see how much the fire department means to the community there. And the other one, from a staff perspective, we're appreciative of is getting the support from this table and from the directors to fund what needs to be done, because there's volunteers on one side that make it happen, and the other is the budget. And without the significant increases that we've been able to work through for Beaver and budget, we couldn't afford to fund the training and the people and the equipment and so on. So it all comes together. So thanks for your support.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Goran, Manager of Infrastructure and Sustainability.
Through the chair. Just providing an update on the 045 Regional Parks and Trails Service in Area D. We've successfully procured the project. And we're just about to issue the drawings for construction, and we need to get some environmental work done to make sure there's no nesting birds out there, and construction should start in the next month or so on finalizing this. I do ask the director to be patient, as some of the work is considered to be quite high risk, and there's a lot of unknowns exist, as this was built by the Doukhobor community probably about 100 years ago. So there's some unknown risks that might arise or might not arise as well. So if there's any questions.
Director?
Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate you taking time today. I do have questions, and I do appreciate your passion. I'll always say that because I learn as I go. We talked, a while ago now, about that little parking area and whether or not, if there is any possibility of redirecting a little bit of the money we spend on fixing that up a bit so it's not being torn apart by four-wheel drives. So I just wanted to up in your brain. I know you have enough to do, but that's something to be considered moving forward, not this instant. I know this.
Okay. Yeah, we were supposed to meet with somebody.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yep, they're willing to meet. So that is up to you and your schedule.
Okay.
We'll talk more.
And then for next year, we'll add some funding for the Grand Forks ATV, right? For some maintenance stuff.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we can move the.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Goran.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Goran. Appreciate you coming in. All right. Donna Dean, Planning and Development. Service 170.
Through the chair. It's a movie. Didn't hear the question. This program has been, as you all know, very successful. We just had this very successful watershed forum, if anyone was attended. It's really well received. Really good return on investment for this program. So it's $200,000 in taxation each year. And this year we were able to secure, or mostly Christina's work, it was just around $800,000. And that's the total there. So that's going into the Burl Creek riparian restoration and riparian assessment and evaluation, as you can all see on the list there. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, Director?
I have a quick comment. As being newly elected, I did not understand these things when I began a couple of years ago. As we have moved forward, this has become more and more, what's the word, enjoyable. I really appreciate the amount of work that is done and the end results. This has been a terrific project and is worth all the money that we spent on it.
Jim Rubin? Thank you, Director, and seconded by Jerry. Okay, any further questions? And Watershed Forum was absolutely phenomenal. Cheers to everybody.
It was a ton of work. There were a lot of people there that said, we should do this every year. We should do this 3 times a year. And it only happened because of the funding that we got from the province that we received. So that's just not something that Christina would be able to pull off annually without any more support.
Province loves the boundary. So
Yeah.
that's good.
And the other thing that I did forget to mention, was around floodplain mapping. So we did receive $400,000 for floodplain mapping. So that's to extend the mapping up the Granby and extend it up north of Rock Creek as well. So there's some updating and some extension of floodplain mapping there. So there'll be more public forums or public information sessions.
Excellent. Sharon?
Sorry. Thank you. I just wanted to say, yeah, terrific event and really nice to see the chair of the RDKB and directors from the other side. Allie was there and others to support it. And just a bit of a reminder about the ortho photography that just kind of keep that on the back burner if we can use it on the other side and share that resource.
Well, once we have it, we own it. Sharon, thank you both. Yeah.
Okay, moved and second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Ginny McGoodle, Environmental Services. Sorry, there should be. You got a number of work plan. Mosquitoes. Herbage, milfoil, go for it.
Okay, thank you through the chair. So with respect to both of our mosquito control services, they're very similar. And we've got 2 projects on the list for 2025 for each. The contract obviously was completed earlier this year. We did a 1-year contract, so we're going to be going through a procurement process again this fall, given that contract now expires on December 31st, 2025. And the other project is the pest management plan renewal process that's going to start. We haven't started that yet because the plan has to be renewed for next year. So we'll be starting that in the fall of this year as well. So just those 2 projects, and otherwise it looks like we're through the majority of Frechette. So hopefully the mosquitoes haven't been so bad this year. And unfortunately, though, we're looking at a bit of a drought, I think, for the remainder of the year, which is good for budget, but not necessarily good in a lot of other ways. I'll leave it there. Any questions?
Okay, so I'll open up for any questions for Janine. Director?
Quick comment. The mosquitoes are really bad in the nursery at the moment, just so you know. Have they already been sprayed?
Oh yes, they've been applying product since the Frechette began. So definitely, certainly if you've got folks that are having challenges, give Morrow Bioscience a call and let them know, because that helps them identify potentially new areas or areas that they've treated that haven't been effective. So obviously once the adults are flying, there's not much they can do, but that will definitely give them an idea of what has been effective and what hasn't. So please, if they are bad, get those folks to call Morrow Bioscience and report it, please.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Jane. So what I'm going to do is we'll move 080 and 081 for the receiving the report. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Grace. Seconded by Director Linda Kay. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, Jane, noxious weeds.
This is our milfoil service in Christina Lake, 091 budget. And we've got two projects here. We're continuing on with our pilot project for using the floating benthic mats. I just got back from 2 weeks holiday, so I haven't got a complete update on what happened while I was gone yet. But we've been talking about and planning our deployment for 2025. They were checking on the mats to see whether or not the overwintering that we did. So basically we left some mats in overwinter in around some of the dock areas to see if that would prove more successful than trying to put the mats out during the summer months. Because what we're seeing in Christina Lake is the milfoil is overwintering, i.e. it's not dying back as much as it historically has. So when our dive crew starts, the milfoil has already gotten a bit of a head start on them, and it's making their work slower and more challenging for them to complete it. So we're testing the overwintering capability of the mats. The other thing that we're also initiating is conversations with Ministry of Environment. So what we've been talking about doing is coming up with a strategy to expand or initiate a private a property landowner program where the regional district would, to deploy floating benthic mats in Christina Lake, you require a notification from the province. It's almost like a permitting or a regulatory process. So if a member of Christina Lake community wanted to go and buy floating benthic mats and deploy them themselves in and around their private beach dock area, they would have to go through that process through Ministry of Environment. We're trying to work with Ministry of Environment to have the regional district hold a general notification with strict conditions of use surrounding it, that the regional district could then kind of be the support tool to allow property owners to buy their own mats and then deploy them under the regional district notice. The regional district would allow the divers to deploy the mats, and we would also supervise the initial site and make sure that it meets the criteria that would be established by the province to allow for mat deployment. And then we would also then check to make sure the landowners haven't moved the mats when they're not supposed to, because obviously if things aren't done properly, it would be at risk to the regional district. So there'll be some pretty strict conditions around it, but we think this would be a good way for for the regional district to support property owners who would like to buy the mats themselves. We've had a number of folks expressed interest in the use of the mats directly, and this might be just another way of helping out that process. So we've been actively investigating that with the province to see what that would look like, and hoping, fingers crossed, that we can get that in place here this year. The other big project that we're looking at is the investigation into the alternative product, Procelicor FX, which is an aquatic herbicide, and I've talked a little bit about it before. It's a new product that's been registered for use in Canada in 2023. It's been used in the US since 2018, so it's a very new aquatic herbicide that's been developed, and there's benefits of having a new herbicide in the sense that it's been kind of engineered to target plant biology and plant health, shall we say, as opposed to more of a generalized herbicide that potentially has impacts to fish and other aquatic organisms and ultimately humans. We've hired a consultant to complete the work associated with project. They're in the process right now of doing some preliminary background information on understanding this herbicide, the pros and cons, and we're looking at developing educational and informational items for the public, as well as a survey that we're looking at completing work. And we're going to be having a public meeting in the summer period when the majority of users are at Christina Lake, and we're going to be doing social media. We're basically just sort of kicked off the project here in the last month, and we're coming up with a plan of attack. We will have the project completed in November with all the documentations and all of that. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is engage both with the community of Christina Lake as well as impacted potential First Nations in the potential use of this product. And we want to really understand what people's concerns are, what people want to have happen, how we can potentially mitigate those concerns if at all possible, with the idea that if, and this is a big if the community is supportive of a trial or a pilot in the use of this product, the regional district would then have to apply for a pesticide use permit, which is a 3-year permitting process and obviously requires First Nations engagement. Hence, we're reaching out to First Nations communities right off the get-go here. Even though we're not in a formal permitting process, we want to make sure that we engage with them right out the door. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting project, very much and probably quite controversial, but very much interested in hearing from the community and their thoughts on this product. So yeah, it's that project is well underway as well. And with that, I will answer any questions.
I'll let Director Grace, do you want to head on?
I have no questions, no. We've talked about this a lot. Thank you, but I would make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Grace. Seconder?
Second?
Sharon?
Just,
Okay, and any follow-up question?
yeah,
Go
just a
ahead.
quick question, just regarding liability in the regional district, is that going to increase any insurance costs or anything for us?
No, I don't see at this point any impacts to insurance costs or any other thing of that nature, especially I'm assuming you're talking about the floating benthic mat project as opposed to the Bracellacor. Like I said, what we're going to be doing is creating a system in place that is very stringent. And our divers are around all the time to kind of check on what's going on. And obviously we haven't seen approval from the province yet. So we'll be doing our diligence to minimize any risk to the organization for sure.
Thank you.
Janine, is this approval come through Walrus? Is that where it comes from, the water lands?
I believe so. Yeah.
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 Good luck.
Thanks.
Linda Kay, did you have a question? No? Okay. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. Just a question about algae and any other concerns about problems with other plant life or mammals with these benthic mats.
No, the way that we're working with the benthic mats is they're targeting areas we're using them to target areas of both milfoil as well as fragrant water lily, which are two highly invasive species in Christina Lake. There's a number of native plants as well, but when we deploy the benthic mats, they're targeting areas that are 80% plus those two plant types. So usually the milfoil that we're going after is their patches of pretty much 100%. The benthic mats and why they're called floating benthic mats, they don't actually float at the top. They're held down by rebar. but they float a little bit off the bottom. So they have holes in them to allow gases to escape, versus your historic mats that have been used are basically just flat. They lay flat on the bottom. They're kind of like your landscape fabric in a lake setting. That has more harm and causes more harm to to benthic organisms, or the organisms that live in the substrate at the bottom of the lake. These floating benthic mats, because they float, they still leave room for fish to swim. There's oxygen transfer and all of that. So they're seen as a more environmentally appropriate mat type. What we have found happen is that, with Christina Lake, it's quite silty. And depending on how long the mats are left in place, the milfoil will actually, silt will form on top of the mats, even though they're floating. And milfoil will start to grow, or milfoil starts growing actually through the vent holes. So, definitely an interesting technology, but from an environmental perspective, far more suited. And the other thing to know about Christina Lake is that, especially in the south end, there isn't most lakes that I'm familiar with, you go out 20 feet and they drop off pretty quickly, right? Christina Lake doesn't in the south end. It stays quite shallow for a rather long distance out from the lake. So the amount of vegetative growth and even native plant growth that's in there is significant for fish populations and all of that. So that's going to be one of the restrictions that the province will put on us, is that, and the private property owner program, is that they don't and they won't want a complete decimation of the entire lakeshore front with, we want some level of plant species to maintain, to allow for fish habitat to continue. So those are the sort of balances and checks that we're going to be having with respect to that program.
Yeah, when we did the tour of Christina Lake, that was phenomenal watching, seeing what these look like and what's coming up and it was an excellent afternoon. I learned more than I probably ever needed to know, but it was certainly interesting. And hopefully we'll be able to do that one more time, and just for the new directors just to see what it was like.
Before I leave or after?
You're not going anywhere, Denise.
There's no more sunlight.
I just think, okay, and so we moved to the second, and all those in favor, proceed to fourth. Opposed? Great, thank you very much. Noxious weeds, area D, area E. Janine.
Yeah, this one, we've got two projects as well. We've got the property owner notification program that was approved in the work plan late. I haven't started that yet, to be quite honest. Obviously, I've got a number of other projects on the go at the moment. And we've got the landowner seeding assistance program. We've started some initial conversations between myself and the Boundary Invasive Species Society around how that might look and what that might look like. But to be quite honest, we haven't made a huge lot of progress on it. So it's still in process, and I'll end up following up with them now that I'm back from holidays to see where we're at and what that might look like. I'll leave it there.
Okay. Directors, thank you, Sharon. Seconded by Richard. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you, Janine.
Thank you. Take care.
It's good. Glad you're back from holidays. I believe they actually gave her holidays. That was in a conference. Anyway. Mr. Keys, good morning. We got 21, 23, 24, 27, 30, 31, and 40. Can we give this gentleman any more than 35?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Anyway, go ahead, Paul. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. We'll start at the top, I guess. Recreation Program Services is budget 021. Big project there is the Recreation Master Plan, or the long-term master plan that we're working on with Hamilton Recreation. They were hired back in December. We've done a bunch of background, provided them with a bunch of background information. Got an initial report on that probably early in March. We went through a nice long public consultation. Received about 250 individual surveys from that engagement. And then we did some interviews with community groups involved in recreation. We continue to reach out. They're still reaching out to some of the kind of fringe organizations right now, I would say, that are indirectly providing recreation. So that work still continues quietly these days.
They're also working, they'll put together, what we heard report, from all the surveys and, give us a little report on that. And then they are going to start, working forward on and analyzing some of this. They're going to start putting together reports for us, based on what they heard, based on some of the industry trends, based on kind of the needs and wants and where we need to go. Project wraps up. I'm expecting kind of early October. So by Thanksgiving, I'm thinking we should be through that. A couple more reports to go. A few more engagements with a steering committee we've heard, but kind of progressing along about as expected. So we might be a week or two behind. We kind of extended our survey time a little bit to try and get some more in, but generally speaking, going all right.
Could I ask a question? What did they think of the 250 out of the 8,000 that we have between the services here?
We were a little disappointed.
Yeah.
We struggled. We seemed to struggle at Canada Post locally, somehow, some way.
Yeah, thank
But it's enough.
Okay.
I mean, you always hope for, you hope everybody answers. Yeah, I think they've got some information. The feedback we've got from the different community groups we've talked to has been really, really good and really valuable as well. We had a quick peek with them at the numbers probably about a month ago, and really the answers almost reflected the level of engagement that overall everybody was like, yeah, you know what, it's a 7 out of 10, and relatively satisfied with what we're doing. And, there didn't seem to be too many things that really jumped off the page, that you're doing right or that you're doing wrong. We're just kind of rolling along with it. And I think that's somewhat reflects that.
It's what during the Bruins run, I had a number of people at the game that said, I said, look, there's a survey out there. Please go get the survey. Don't just check yes or no, but give a fulsome report of what you want to see. Because I said, otherwise you sit around the table and, we're working on minimum information. So this is your opportunity to tell us, what do you want?
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that I would like to have seen a greater number, but if we take in consideration all the fringe groups that will be feeding in, then maybe it might be 250 might be that much greater.
I think it's enough to get us where we need to go. We thought we'd get more traction with the Bruins. We probably had 20 posters up around the building during the playoff games, and saw a little bit of a tick from it, but not what we were hoping for. Okay, guys, thank you. Okay, Christina Lake Parks and Recreation Commission. This is basically for us, this is event hosting out at Christina Lake. So we hosted Winterfest back in February. We are headlong into the middle of planning for homecoming right now. Lots of community engagement, lots of coordination of those types of things. We've got kind of base level advertising launched, and we're just filling in the details of what's coming for homecoming as we move along. So making good headway on that. Feeling a little more comfortable with it this year than we did last year. 024 is our Christina Lake Parks and Recreation Facilities. This is largely grant dollars to support the community hall out there that's used as a recreation facility. So they've got plans to upgrade steel kitchen counters, the ballpark netting. They've produced landscaping projects, planting new trees out front of the facility, trying to boost things outside and inside. So running water lines, and we've been working with them a little bit to coordinate that sort of work. And nothing too crazy there. Excitement of the day. The pedestrian bridge project. We sent out a second RFP in February 2025 to find a construction contractor to build the bridge. That was successful. We found Interior Marine Construction out of Scotch Bay, British Columbia, which is in Shuswaps. Was awarded the project officially in mid-April. We did an extensive kind of background check on them. We did an extensive look at their proposal that has designed a little bit differently than what we were expecting, but similar enough.
that we thought this was the way to go. So the winning bid did come in under budget. We're working towards an expected budget of just over $1.8 million right now, including contingencies. New bridge is being manufactured in Scotch Bay out of aluminum and expected to be installed in 2025. Don't have a schedule for installation yet. That's going to be based on the timeline for obtaining the raw materials. I think the raw materials are going to end up coming out of the United States by the sounds of it. Yeah, we remain on target for fall construction. And yeah, kind of once we've got construction dates from these guys, we'll start knocking on some of the neighbors' doors and making sure everybody knows what's going on and when it's going on so they can kind of plan their lives, because we're going to be a little disruptive for a couple of weeks while this thing gets installed. But exciting stuff.
Yes, sir.
Fuel park mitigation project. We conducted a heritage inspection assessment along with this to inform the prescription. That's the plan being developed to how we're going to go about this fuel mitigation there. We received that late in May, so we're with New versus Heritage who did this archaeological assessment and the other project partners just to make sure everybody's talking the same language and that our method of mitigation align with the recommendations to limit ground disturbance from in 4 areas of potential that were identified within the archaeological assessment. So just making sure everybody's on the same page and that we're good to move forward on that. So that is starting to move forward a little quicker now that we've got that heritage inspection assessment in our hands. Pickleball court development, we'll be working to develop a plan for expansion of pickleball courts in 2025. Active transportation network planning, we had meetings with transportation specialists from Associated Engineer to discuss kind of the next steps in development of the active transportation network. Now that we've got the bridge going in, how do we bridge out from there and connect that to trails and provide the connectivity, especially around the south end of the lake that the engagement suggested we were looking for. So they kind of gave us an idea of the budget and see how that inches forward here. Our dog park amenities, we built a new dog park, opened on May 1st. We had a nice gathering, opening ceremonies on the 10th. We had a couple of benches that got shipped yesterday. They were back ordered a bit on us. Garbage cans have showed up. So the dog park is starting to come in. We've had one call wondering who built it for us, looking to build their own. So that's kind of positive feeling. Makes you feel like you did it the right way. So yeah, pretty happy with the dog park and how that is going. The Welcome Center Park development issued an RFP on May the 2nd to find an architectural firm to work with developing plans behind the Welcome Center. And this would include some fire smart design of replacing the siding of the Welcome Center. It would include a redesign of the patio there, replacement of the existing rubber tiles. Apparently they get pretty slippery when they're wet, but they also burn in case of fire. So we want to get rid of those. Get rid of the wooden fence going around the outside so it doesn't burn back to the place and to the building. We're looking at possible integration of the patio in the design of a small amphitheater in the back that currently Christina Lake Art Society hosts some concerts back there. We're looking to formalize that area a little bit better for them, see if we can make it work. We're looking for them to designate an area for playground development within a park space out behind the Welcome Center. Right now there's a swing set and a little slide for the under 5. We're looking to make something that's a little bit more attractive when you go driving fast on the highway, try to get some people to stop there. And then we'll do some traffic flow management with all these extra amenities going in behind. We're going to have to cut off the costs. Response has been really good. There's lots of 7 firms attend an operation and an optional site tour back in the middle of May. bump the closing request back to 13th. We've got lots of questions actually about how to do it in scope. So we've clarified everything, gave them a couple extra weeks to work with, and yeah, kind of excited to see where it ends up here this year. Kennebell Walking Trail, been researching trail safety around golf courses, making sure that we know how far we need to be away from corridors of play to make sure nobody's getting hit by a golf ball, and if we are, kind of inching up on that, how do we keep them safe? What are we going to have to do? And then we're looking at a bike park design up on a piece of crown land at the south end of the lake. So we'll have to finish off it's a development plan necessary to perform the crown land application, so we can go about developing some bike trails up in the trees there. Any questions on that? No,
That's just amazing, though. Good.
yeah, really. Art circus for me every once in a while. Juggling away. The arena, the RO replacement, we've got an aging reverse osmosis system over there to treat the flood water. So that equipment's on order. We'll get that. We're kind of expecting here in the next couple of weeks. So we'll get that installed before we start building ice in August. The office redesign, worked on a design. We've reached out to a contractor there last week just to see if he can come by and have a look, try and get an idea from him of what the cost of construction might actually be. The estimate we got from the architect seems a bit high, and over $100,000 seems ridiculous to me. So we'll see what our contractors have to say on that. Pump replacement. Our brine pump is just getting ready to age out, and it's one of those key pieces of operation that we need. Brine pump goes down, and you lose your ice. So we've contacted our contractor that maintains the ice plant over there. He is working to source that for us, finding the right size and all that kind of fun stuff. So kind of hoping to hear on that sooner than later. Timekeeper's box expansion. Our plan going into this year was basically to bump it back, create about 30 inches of space in behind there, accommodate some of the extra people that are piling into that tiny little area to support not just what the Bruins are doing, but support what the minor hockey are doing and their statistics keeping and playing of music and the announcing of goals and all that kind of stuff. But then we had a conversation with Kevin McKinnon, who does the broadcasting for the Border Bruins, and is squished up in a little crow's nest there at center ice that was, I don't know when it went in. It's been there for a long time. It's seating for two at the top end, and they've definitely outgrown that. They could use a third person up there, but there just isn't room. So he'd seen an example of how they kind of went up over top in Spokane. So I'm going to reach out to a design firm here, see if we can get someone to look and see if that is even possible again within the space that we've got. We are a little bit tight for room, but the two projects would dovetail together really nicely if it proved possible and cost effective. So we'll have a closer look at that. And then I don't know if anybody noticed when they looked in today, we've got people working on the Zamboni ramp coming out that there is concrete retaining wall alongside that ramp, and not last winter, but the winter before, it was hit by the front end loader moving snow and lodged it, knocked it out of position, and kind of pushed it back in this last winter. But you can see where it's slowly starting to move, and thought we'd better get this repaired before it starts slumping out, and we've got a $50,000 project instead of a $15,000 project. So got them in there fixing that, kind of went through building officials and structural engineers to make sure we could go straight to a contractor. So talked to a few local guys and have someone in there making sure this doesn't turn into a long-term big problem. So there, and started this week. The curling rink, the roof work, we'll look to get up there either later this month or in July and kind of replace some of the screws on the south end, see if we can stop the leaking there. That has persisted over the years. And then finally, the aquatic center really is just the energy efficiency project that is kind of fallen off the rails due to a funding shortfall. We are looking at trying to find additional grant dollars to support that and kickstart that. Probably gone down the rabbit hole of a couple of different grants. So we're on the lookout and kind of hoping that something comes up, but you never know. So, okay, that's what we're at. Perfect. Any questions? Thanks, Paul. Yeah, Director.
I'm struck, Paul, and this isn't a staff issue, I think it's a funding issue. I am struck by the fact that Christina Lake, new project after new project after new project, whereas in Area D, we're just sort of running to keep caught up. I don't know how we change that dynamic, but it'd sure be nice to be able to figure out how to do that.
If you got rid of the 30 staff members in the 2 buildings across the street, it'd be way easier.
Oh.
Well, no, just to say, it takes time. What we invest in Area D, a lot of the time spent here is dealing with the staff and the management and the operations of those 2 buildings, and just the day-to-day operations of those 2 can be a lot.
I understand.
Yeah, that's dancing through the fun stuff there. Yeah, I think that's part of it. At the very least, that plays a role. Yeah, there seems to be, I'd say Grand Forks is a little bit more established than Christina Lake as a community too, that you're in a community where, you know, the city does have their own playgrounds and there are already ball diamonds and parks and pickleball courts and tennis courts that we as the regional district are not involved in.
Right.
And that Grand Forks kind of uses as part of their own. So that existing community that, you know, the city of Grand Forks provides and their recreation-based developments, you know, that definitely factors into that as well too. There's just not
It's never a simple answer, is it?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, any other questions for Paul?
Just a really,
Go ahead, Chair.
thank you, Chair. Just a quick basic one. New design of the bridge, is it still going to be covered?
Yes. Yeah, it looks, if you hadn't seen the first one, even if you have seen the first design, you may not notice a change in this. Really, the change has been construction out of aluminum. So we definitely did some research, some engineering on that to make sure that that was going to be structurally sound at that sort of length. The original plan was a clear span, so leading from one bank, landing on the next. These guys are going to use what they call pin piles. So it sounds just like a couple of metal pipes further down the bank that will shorten that clear span. That makes the aluminum easier to deal with, lowers the cost as well. And then they lengthened it out. It's probably about 12 meters longer than we planned for. So where it lands on the bank isn't right on the edge of the bank. These are actually moved off a little bit, so you don't have to move quite as much dirt to land them further onto the bank. So that took probably a month just to double check all those things. Went back to the Ministry of Transportation, worked make sure we were not kind of treading on their roads, make sure you're not interfering with adjacent property owners' driveways. Like I said, some of the structural things, definitely check back with the environmental plan we put together, make sure we're not going to have problems, because we are now working, if not within the riparian zone, definitely much closer to it than we were planning. We're still above the high water mark. So that kind of solves some environmental plans, but there was a few things we wanted to get to, and that really dragged out the kind of the time from the time proposals were received to the time they were awarded. Took longer than we expected, and then the contract had to be tweaked and reworked to work with the aluminum instead of the steel, and to work this new design into the factor. And so the development of the contract probably dragged out. I think originally we figured about 2 weeks for that. It probably ended up being more like a month. So to get the contract ready, and then it took a week or two to pass it around for everybody to read it. It's a pretty technical thing. So yeah, it took a little bit of time to get that set up. But
supplemental, if I could really quickly. Wouldn't it be exciting to have snapshots of the building of the bridge in a promotional video for the Boundary?
Oh, you can bet there'll be. What's going on there, Sharon?
Yeah, I somehow don't think that should be a concern. Director McGregor's involved, so that's covered. Sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. Just a question about the energy efficiency on the Grand Forks Aquatic Center. Has there been any discussion or any traction around going with solar tubing and solar systems with a granted application to do some energy efficiencies around there?
No, there hasn't. Okay. No, I guess the funding that we have for it really locks in the project that we're doing. We have to meet certain greenhouse gas saving or emissions targets that were identified in that original plan, and the government of Canada is totally and completely unwavering about those targets. So really, like I said, really at this point, we're trying to find some more money through a grant that would allow us to do it, as opposed to going back and starting to re-engineer the whole plan. That the engineering of the project costs some dollars. That you're probably looking, I think we were in the neighborhood of $70,000 or so, and we got a pretty good deal on that, based on the fact that the company that did the engineering design were the ones that had surveyed the building a couple of years previous and did an energy efficiency review of the building in 2021. So they were able to discount that price of engineering. They thought they had a head start at it, and so really to re-engineer it all, probably another six-figure bill, I would guess. Okay, thank you. See, no more questions. Can I get a mover? Thank you, Grace. Seconded. Director Sharon. Further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you, Paul. That's a wholesome report. All right, moving along to BC Transit. 45 minutes here or so before it's lunchtime, so. Yeah, not like I was asking for Russian, but just saying that's
Okay. Thank you. Through our chair, we're also joined here with Danica, our rep, and I think the BC Transit planner. Jen Getz is also with us today. So they've got a little bit of information to share. In brief, that we're continuing with the planning and the work in the background on plans to expand, change, look at the service for future consideration of changes through the existing system and or getting it out to Christina Lake in Area C. To that extent, we've got some high-level estimates of what that will cost. If you recall that when we were talking a few months back, we talked about the ideas of expansion, if that's a future reality, along with any other service. There was basically a good report that Danica shared that we're really fully utilised. In fact, we even found ourselves in some shortfall hours. We threw in a little extra this year to make up an hour and a half to extra service that they've been getting, and BC Transit matched those funds. So we really are maximising the use of what's existing. So that was great data. But said if we're going to expand anything, we need a bus. We can't do another hour without another bus. And if you get a bus, well, you need a driver, and it's you've got to kind of match things then with a reasonable amount of work. So the two options they've just shared, this doesn't mean this is the only thing that we can do, but the guidance is if you're investing in a bus, you're looking at a driver, or at least then 3/4, kind of time of one to give meaningful employment. So these are the amount of service hours you can get at 3 days a week and 5 days a week, and there's the cost share, roughly. For a 3-day-a-week additional service, not about 90,000, and going for 5 days a week, 126,000. So that's taking a new bus and then bringing in, either full-time or close to full-time work. And then it's a new service in Grand Forks area. That's basically that's where our transit operations are based from, and then it'd be new routes going out from there through Area D to Area C. You know, what would that look like in the future? There's a lot more planning, but where we're at today, from my perspective, is we need to do some work with transit, and I'll let either Jen or Danik jump in with things. But we've got to go through this process of how does everyone sit around the table with that? If the idea of these cost increases to consider more services, like it's a no, then ultimately there's not a lot of point of us doing a lot of work in then community engagement and planning to sort of the next steps. So don't have to get the answers today. This is certainly to take away as questions and some further work through the summer. But that's where we've got in the process, because BC Transit have just been going through their kind of cost estimating for the coming years. So we're ready for some kind of feedback around that. And there's a little bit of some other information and updates that I think either Danica or Jen would like to add today. So if there's any questions, please fire away. If not, we've got these other two probably jumping in.
Go ahead, Director. Through the chair. James, the Manor in Midway has a bus.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I can tell, it's maybe used one day a year. And it's a great machine. Could that be something that?
Maybe one of our transit reps, could add to that. But I think that's one of the things with transit system and service. It's their standard and the standard of the bus and everything else. So that's a community self-run system versus the BC Transit. There are restrictions with the BC Transit model.
Yeah, that's just the thought.
Yes.
You sit there. Director Linda King.
Through the chair, that's a wonderful idea, Richard. I think that there needs to be some opening here for us to look outside the box to make these things happen. The expense is incredible for our small communities, and there seems to be no ability to be flexible or to take brilliant ideas of using underutilized equipment.
Question, the proposal, so it says, Grand Forks area, 3 days a week in the 5 days. What do we have now? Like, don't we have?
The service today provides close to this 1950. It's based on 2,000 hours.
Yeah.
So close to that bottom model today with an existing.
Okay, so that would be as it exists today.
Yeah.
And then, so that's the dollar amounts we're talking about if we were to go forward with what we have in our system today. Is that correct? This is new.
This would be new. This is new. This is expanding. I'll let Jen's online. I'll let Jen go in because she can probably explain this.
Yeah, I agree.
So for folks today, so we have an existing service that provides 2,000 hours. Annualized hours, which is basically a kind of a full-time person. Annualized hours for a full-time member of staff is about 1,800 hours a year. It's a little bit more. So think of that as a full-time service for 5 days a week, a driver and a bus.
It's not this now.
We have that now. 2,000 hours a year.
I think what they're missing is this is all the areas and services.
Yes, but unfortunately, that's our service. Our transit service today is 2,000 hours, and for that we get a handy-dart service 5 days a week in and around the Grand Forks area, and the one a week to Rock Creek and back. Okay. No, sorry, to Mid Greenwood and back. We've been able to accommodate with additional funding, supplementary to add the Rock Creek Medical Run. So don't think about that. That is not in our service model and our service platform. It's a bolt-on we can do with IHA funding. So 2,000 hours a year provides the handy-dart 5 days a week and the Greenwood Run. To do any more service, we need another bus. And then therefore the whole driver piece that goes with it. So these are the two options to consider growing the service level over and above what we have today that can then, we could start thinking about regularly scheduled routes, prioritized routes, and all this comes from our interest to look at service review, options for expansion, getting out to the lake, and where transit have kind of said with us, we can't just add 10%, we can't add a little bit. These are the sensible chunks that we could add, a 3-day or a 5-day a week add to the system, because you're buying a whole new bus to get any more kind of hours. So we need to wrestle through this point. How does this, sit? Obviously, if we go to Christina Lake are then going to be taking a lion's share of the whole transit system. I don't think it's going to work right. So the way I see where we're at, and again, there's some specific transit can add in, is this anywhere near a reality for folks? Do you want some more cost kind of estimating and modeling on what it's going to cost individual participants to kind of grow into this kind of service model? And I think we need to work through that before we go to the community and start talking about options. Because if we're not interested in spending more money, then we're stuck with what we've got today.
Through the chair, to clarify, when I see 1,200 annual hours or 1,950 annual hours, that's on top, that is added to the 2,000 we already have.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Director Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. Through the chair, just a question about the 3 to 5 days. That definitely is going to depend on what we're going to get back from here. Area B had some concerns. I remember when Rolly was here talking about areas that weren't serviced. I know there's Grand Forks has concerns about areas that aren't being looked after. Of course, if you had a couple days a week to Christina Lake, I think we really need to know how many hours that equates to, because, do we need 5 days or can we deal with just 3? Right.
Yeah. I'll let Jen or Danica just jump in on some of their thinking around this, and then a couple of other points. You might address some of those before we think about next steps. Okay. So Jen, Danica, the floor is yours if there's a few things you'd like to add.
Sure, I will start. Thanks for the introduction and everything that you mentioned, James. I think this is just the beginning of a conversation, and as James mentioned, what these two options provide you is essentially a part-time or a full-time person who is working, I'll say 8 hours a day, and within that 8 hours a day, they can go anywhere and do anything. So there's opportunity within these options to add multiple trips to and from Christina Lake, to do additional trips to Greenwood, to do additional trips to Midway, or to add additional sort of local on request service within Grand Forks. And likely there would be opportunities to add multiple services like that. Typically when we have an operator, they might do a scheduled trip out to Christina Lake, and then they'd be in town in Grand Forks, and they could do some local on request service sort of in the middle of their day, and then they might do another trip back out to Christina Lake sort of, at the end of the day. And there's a lot of flexibility there. So we haven't gone down the path of extensive planning for what these 1,200 hours or 1,900 hours how they would be scheduled, because there is a lot of flexibility.
Okay. Director Grace, do you have any comments?
Thank you. I of course do want the numbers. I want to know what those look like. And regardless of whether I know where I'm going or not, I would need that to go to a referendum, period. No matter what I feel about those numbers. Because at the end of the day, you can put a message out there and say, this is what it's going to cost you. So I said no. And that's not often what people want to hear. If I say, these are what the numbers are, and this is what you're going to pay, you vote on it. it's a different messaging. So I will go down that road when the numbers are available. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, James Hall.
Yeah, so because we're kind of working through this in a kind of an iterative process, really looking for, rather than just receive that guidance of where to go next. And what I'm somewhat hearing and the intent was, this was a longer term plan. I think the reality is a reminder of timelines for things. September will be a time when we wanted to make commitments to BC Transit if we were going to accelerate things next year. I think in this year, the reality is we're not in a position to make any commitments to that timeline. So what I see is then more of a process of exploring the budgetary impacts for bringing in these costs for the service. For everybody from a budget perspective, as we look into a forecast for the fall this year, so we can then make some decisions on what it might look like. We would absolutely need feedback from all the participants about where this is going. If folks recall as well, we're also underfunded from a historical perspective for the budget as it exists today. We're supplementing with grants to keep things going. So the budget issues here are not just this. So I'm thinking if it's of agreement with everybody that we bring back in the fall some more analysis to kind of these numbers and these options and what it would actually look like to our budget if we add this in, what the participants are going to pay, start having that conversation that would then ultimately be leading to us a referendum sometime in 2026 if we go down that path to look at what the service is. And I'm sharing that with Transit's perspective as well, of we're not rushing out and maybe doing immediate engagement in on the ground, and they're looking for obviously for the feedback where they spend their time and energy and planning in the next short while. So I'm hearing really the next step is kind of some budget work and some prep for the early fall.
Director Grace?
Yeah, follow up if I could.
Yeah, absolutely.
True. But along with that, if we can have the usage number, because without the usage number straight across here, regardless of Christina Lake not being in there yet, we have no way of deciding, do we need more service, do we not need more service? And quite frankly, the small bus issue, I think is really, really important for a conversation around this table at some point. So thank you.
So if I may, when you say usage, you're on about the current utilization.
The current usage numbers, yeah.
So I think Danica's got
a non-estimate. Don't give me estimate numbers. Give me real numbers, because that my council looks at me and says, "Well, they're estimate. That's not accurate." So can we not get some accurate numbers that we can, some real numbers that we can get a hold of, grab on? So, yeah.
And can I just post quick with it? Danica, so the information that you had last time is we've started to get pretty accurate numbers on the usage of the system currently. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I did present some ridership data for each route and service at the last meeting, and I'd be happy to share that ridership data again.
That'd be great. And if you don't, please don't use the word estimate, because it confuses some, that these aren't accurate numbers. They're just made up or puffed up to make it work. So it'd be good if they're as accurate as possibly can be, right? So another question, this goes to transit. I think it's time we deliver a message to the Lower Mainland from rural BC, and we have a rural forum starting next week here up in Kelowna. They drop billions of dollars for SkyTrain and billions of dollars for their buses, and that's great. I get it. There's lots of population there, but it's time the government realizes that we are out here in the rurals, and transportation is really a key part of good living here for people that are senior and need to get around, or those that have disabilities and just need to, and those that just want to be green and don't want to have a vehicle. So I think there's a message, and maybe I need to deliver this to the Minister of Transportation, but I think that there needs to be a little bit of a kick to BC Transit for them to understand that it's great to throw 90,000 and 126, but I mean we struggle in these communities, in our communities, to provide good service, and then we have the reality of going to plebiscite or to try to get support from our communities for this, and we're trying to be green. We're trying to do regional districts certainly, and I believe has we've set a standard of what is acceptable in the area of green and isn't, and look at our parking lots, got lots of electric cars, so I think transit needs a little bit of shaken up here, and particularly for rural British Columbia, is that yes, great to have SkyTrain and all these things, new buses and Broadway lines and all the rest of it, but this is just part of our regular life here, and oftentimes we don't have the choice as to how we move from point A to point B, particularly with our senior population. So anyway, I don't want to be a preacher in my soapbox, but I see it, I hear it, and I see a lot of not equal representation when it comes to such things, and transit's an example. So just take that back to your people. Director McKay.
Chair, James, we spoke the last time about granting, and I had objected to that portion coming out of my grant and aid. I had understood that something different was going to happen with that it would come out of a different fund, and as far as I know, it's still registering as being removed from my grant and aid. We really need to fix that, please.
Through the chair, yeah, with the new gas tax agreement, bit of research sort of being done, and we'll get some exact figures because we've just been looking at this very recently, and there's a level of gas tax that can be used for kind of that's put towards capital as such. So it's not going to be a lot, but it's going to be a relief to your grant and aid. And that's related to the lease costs and the capital for the buses. So your proportional share of that, you should be able to use gas tax funding. So we'll get back to you and confirm those. That will give you some grant and aid relief on that one. So yeah.
Most excellent. Thank you, James.
Okay, go ahead, James. Sorry, Director Sharon.
Can you include me on that information regarding lease cost from capital for gas tax?
Sure.
I keep getting approached from Big Red. Yeah. But have some very solid answers.
Okay. Yeah. One other item that's just on the agenda is also we look for a motion of approval for the annual operating agreement. This is kind of in arrears. It's already in our budget this year. The transit's agreement is the fiscal year March to April. So this is our agreement through the remainder of this year and into through to March 2026. It always comes to us after we've done our budget, but looking for approval of that.
Will this come to council? Will this come to the council? No, this is
okay. It's already in our budget.
Okay.
So, but just the formality of a motion to approve the annual operating agreement,
as well as the work plan update.
Yeah.
Okay. Could I have a mover for that, please?
Motion.
Thank you. Director Sharon?
Sure.
Director Grace, okay. Any questions on that? It's already in the budget, right? So this is not something new that needs to come to staff or maybe more money or whatever. Okay. No. All right. Seeing that, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I see that was with reluctance, but anyway, okay. Yes, go ahead.
If I may, I've actually just realised in the notes, I didn't mention it, and Nina are about to online, but I think they probably want to mention something about the topic of a deadhead. Danica, would you?
Thank you, James. I do have a quick update that I hope will be well received. So in the past, we have had some interest from riders in the area that want to utilize the existing Route 1 that goes between Greenwood and Grand Forks. They want to utilize it on the bus's trip from Grand Forks to Greenwood. So we have, I'll say, activated that part of the service. We call it daylighting. So now, instead of the bus leaving Grand Forks and driving out of service to Greenwood to start its trip, now the bus will be in service as soon as it leaves its sort of parking spot in Grand Forks at 8:30 in the morning on Fridays. It will be in service, so riders can get on the bus in Grand Forks, take a trip to Greenwood, and then if they need, take a trip from Greenwood back to Grand Forks, which has been the service that's been in place all along. And this will be available on both of the trips for their route number 1 that occur on Fridays. And this has been a cost-neutral scheduling adjustment. So we do have a new rider's guide that is just in the final stages of development that will show this new sort of service availability on it.
Are you advertising now the bus routes? And I thought I saw one of the reports where you had some nice Facebook stuff and social media stuff. Are you doing that to let people know in our community that we indeed do have a bus and this is how they get a hold of it? I don't recall seeing any in the paper, but I might have missed it.
Thanks. We usually have the local governments take the lead on sort of local promotion and marketing. We do have some, I think I presented a poster brochure at the last meeting that can be, put up in key spots in the community. We do have some province-wide marketing campaigns that go out, whether it's things like the Grad Pass or affordability campaigns that do get on different platforms like social media and Facebook that are province-wide, I'd say, marketing campaigns. But if you are looking for some more local advertising or marketing of your local services, that's certainly something I can be in touch with James about, and we can see what sort of local opportunities might be the best for the community.
That would be great, because I know that has come up before, asking, do we have a bus service? And so I think it's important that we do that kind of communication group. I think it's great. So Director Linda Kay.
Through the chair, thank you for that clarification. I was going to ask about that. My question was initially about advertising, because nobody knows we have bus service at all here. But there have been discussions about bicycles. Are the buses equipped to take bicycles back and forth?
Yes. So through the chair, the buses are equipped with bike racks. So they do fit 2 bikes. Some of the challenges are that it can be a problem if the bus is traveling at night or at dusk. Bikes do interfere with the headlights. And so most of the time, bus or bike usage on a bus is just for sort of the daylight hours, which in summer aligns really well with your entire schedule and isn't a problem. And in the winter time, when you are hitting dusk sort of earlier in the day, you probably don't have as many people utilizing their bike. So it doesn't tend to be a problem in your local area, but the buses are equipped with bike racks that accommodate 2 bikes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we removed and seconded, and all those in favor, did we do the vote thing? We did, didn't we? We did already. Okay, good. That's that. It's okay. All right. Thank you both for joining us today. I appreciate your input. All right. Moving along. We've got, what time was lunch going to be here? Well, so we got 15 minutes. They're going 10 minutes. Well, anyway, we'll see where we end up. All right. So the next one is the Service 008 Valley Economic Development. Mr. CAO, Deputy CAO.
I should skip through this one pretty quickly. Everything kind of rolling along. Community forest, folks, they're doing work in the background. There isn't a lot of significant updates. The province aren't jumping at us yet and going, yeah, here you can get a community forest. So Paul and Dan McMaster continue to do their work in the background with community partners and the industry leaders to look at areas for tenure and try and develop a management plan that makes sense that we can waive at the province. So I think more updates kind of following the summer. Not a lot to dwell on there in terms of decisions being made. It's just work in the background. The Food Hub is our other project that we support. In our final year of supporting it, I can share that things are moving along well through BCVA. Contracts are in place for the design consultants, and actually as of this week 5 bids were received for the construction. I don't know what the results are. We're kind of serving our respective roles, and we're waiting for the results and recommendations, but to get 5 bids and interest to build the building is pretty good. So hopefully that all works out within plan and expectations, and we'll get some recommendations coming back pretty soon to continue with that. And things really starting up on the ground once that major sort of contract is in place. So they're really on track for things getting from being a flat field to going kind of vertical through this summer. The other ones are really just our programs. Food recovery program, there's a report attached to won't kind of dwell on that, but as always, that food recovery program is going wonderfully. Good information received from Tammy. Let folks know I met with the Gospel Chapel in the last couple of months. Just we have an annual check-in. Is everything okay? They could not be more complimentary about the relationship in the program and that continuing. So, there was at some point a concern of like, oh, how long can we stay there and use the kitchen? Is there any risk of that? They're like, no, you are in very good standing, kind of overall. So don't see any concerns with that as an ongoing kind of operational. We touched on the Reddit grant earlier with Sarah here. Great news. We got given that $500,000. So they're going to be rolling up the sleeves and getting on with that. There's going to be a lot more happening in there. So that's going to be a big part of this service moving ahead over the next couple of years. Is you see that really perhaps the future of it enabling a lot of grants on economic development right through the region. As you noted, we've got a draft of the contract. Not looking for anything in particular from this committee. It's a basic agreement that we'll be funding them as a kind of a project manager for looking after everything over the next couple of years. So that's all ready to go. That's the dev update across the boundary. Any questions?
Okay, open for questions. Director? Motion to proceed. Thank you. Seconder? Grace? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right. Boundary Animal Control Service. Deputy CAO.
Thank you. So today could be more complex or less complex based on the interests of participants. I think to be brief, we all know what has transpired in the community from dialogue from public and media and so on. The position we're in, point of fact, is we got notice from the commissioners. They're not going to hang around and continue to provide the service with us. However that has come about, I think, again, doesn't need to be dwelled on, but their last day of service with us will be the 27th of this month. So up until then, it's kind of the business as usual. I listed here in the report a number of considerations we might make. A few weeks back, Grace had asked to put a service review on the table for this service more formally, and really look at where it's going on. Somewhat anecdotally, I would share that what I hear more of is a variety of expectations around the levels of service throughout the whole region. And I see that's what we have is a diversity of needs, potentially from the downtown kind of urban centres to the far reaches of our rural area that the service extends over. So it's not an easy answer of one size fits all. So what does our future kind of entail is we have, in some ways, you could say, an open book from the end of June. We won't have anyone in place providing that service and a clear need to look at the service structure and service level and a service review. Again, that service review can be more formal and more complex and more costly and time consuming, or it can be simplified based on the interest of participants to kind of remain in the service. But it's very much will be your process to set the goals and your expectations around the service. So I don't think we're going to resolve everything today, but do be aware that there'll obviously be gaps ahead while we look at what comes next. Open for discussion and questions at this point.
Director Grace.
Chair Baker, thank you. It is my wish to withdraw from that service period and not enter into another one. The amount of money that Christina Lake is paying into animal control is for people 4 times it showing up at Christina Lake or whatever. I, for one, have had no problem with commissioners, and it annoys me that the Gazette decided to paint everyone with the same brush. That's just wrong. So I'm being very straight up with you. I have no intention whatsoever of partnering on animal control at all in the future. If I do anything at Christina Lake and animal control, I will do a small part-time, couple-day-a-week, somebody to phone service, which will be very, very small and geared that way. So thanks. Sorry that if this upsets everybody, but I think you probably will understand just by looking at the numbers what I'm going to end up with.
Thank you, Director Grace. I'll also throw in comments from the city. I will look to withdraw as well. I believe our city has the capacity. I've asked staff to look into what that will look like for us to take over and do our city of Grand Forks. And so, like Director Grace, I just see, for the amount of grade I take, we might as well own the project. And so that's what I've asked staff to do and get back that direction. I will comment though, and to Director Grace, when I have been asked as the chair, I have said numerous times that this was not all directors. There were directors that were quite content with the service and probably wish it carried on, but that's so. Just to be clear, my deliberations to the media has been that this is not all the directors at the table, just the few. So, all right, Director Linda Kay.
Through the chair. Thank you. I absolutely understand the amount of money that we have all spent in the last 10 years on dog control is unconscionable. This is taxpayers' money. Moving forward, I'd be perfectly happy also to withdraw from the service, and I would be very happy to consider partnering in whatever Grand Forks may come. It makes physical sense for Area D and Grand Forks to partner on dog control.
Director Jerry.
Thanks, Chair Baker. For us, or me personally, sitting at the table, one of the concerns I have that they're great today is the fact that we haven't had an opportunity to talk about this as a municipality. And I understand the state makes decisions separately, but it's easy as an area director to say, I want to stay or go. Whereas this service is a service in our community as a whole. And these type of decisions, I feel personally, should be brought to our table as well for discussion before we make that decision on these matters. My personal view. Secondly, in Roslyn, I believe it was, I believe the city opted out of the EOC program, and a year or two later decided they wanted back in. And my understanding was that they had to pay right back to the start in order to get back into the services or anything like that with these type of services that we're dealing with right today?
Yeah, through the chair, ultimately, yeah, to that, with anything that we decide to do, you know, there's a process. It's not just all decide today, and it's interests and decisions today can lead to us then starting, you know, investigation and the path of whether that's service withdrawal, service review, so nothing happens kind of overnight. And the example you just quoted of Rossland was like, yeah, they went through a process of service withdrawal. They didn't want to participate. A couple of years after going through that process and withdrawal, they were like, yeah, we need to come back in, and the significant and costly process then to come back into the service. There's, I think, what we're looking at these two paths ahead of whether there's ultimately the service review to restructure the service for somebody to withdraw from the service, but the service to maintain, versus a review that will lead to the service essentially kind of dissolving because there isn't the participant interest to keep the service going. So that's the piece for us to kind of wrestle through. We will have to do a formal process, and actually next on the agenda, as this was put forward, was the report that Anitra has helped create around service review kind of process. So I think as we get into that, and again, based on discussions today, I think staff are going to be reported back on, you know, what the next steps would look like for this service. That helps.
Follow up, Jerry?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, just another question about the process, and I may have read it wrong, but my understanding is the process is actually supposed to go through this board and not through this board, right? I think it says right in the bylaw or the process for review that we get the staff report process for review. I believe it says in there this is supposed to be a board of directors decision, not a federal services decision. Just want to make sure, I don't buy either way, but I just want to make sure that if this is the process we're doing, that we're doing it the right way. Absolutely.
Go ahead, Secretary Chair. There's three different levels of service review. There's informal, there's bylaw based, and then there's statutory. Statutory being the most formal, and that's where the ministry actually usually appoints someone or get our own facilitator. That can be quite costly, but there's also statutory timelines attached to that to make sure that the process keeps moving. Bylaw-based review, that's when service establishment bylaws actually have a provision in there for review of the bylaw. In terms of the Economic Development Commission, that is in there, and local control is not in there. And so informal, that's where you would start. The conversations would happen here, but of course the board would have to be informed. That's not the
Secretary, follow up there.
Yes, thanks, Chair, through the chair. Just again, and I just read it yesterday, so just want to make sure I'm not mistaken. With the informal review, I believe it does say in there that if you do an informal review and you decide to do a formal review, whoever asks for the formal review has to pay for the costs incurred with the formal review, unless we wait 3 years to redo it. So I'm just wondering if I'm reading this right. I want to make sure that it's
informal or formal.
So if we started an informal review, then we wouldn't do another review for 3 years, or we would whoever asked to do a review in the meantime for formal, if they wanted to come out, it would have to be paid for by them. I guess what I'm saying is, if we have 3 participants saying they took one out, do we just take this to the board of directors and say we want a formal review saying we want to do this service?
And it wouldn't be a formal, wouldn't necessarily be a formal review, correct?
Yeah, and I think what maybe the best path forward, because it's hard to discuss every option, it is really taking what we're hearing today, and if what we're hearing today is either the 3 participants of the service are in support of the service, a formal service review, you know, with interest to withdraw from the service, or any further comments from Director Shaw as well. the staff would report back on what the next steps would then look like based on that direction. It's, again, with the input that's got on the page here from the next item, informal bylaw based on statutory. If we do an informal review, it ultimately means it can't lead to service withdrawal. So with the service withdrawal in mind, we're ultimately into, a much more formal, process to go through, which we would then report back and say, right, based on this service and based on the bylaw, here's the process we think we need to go through. This is what it would look like. This is what it might cost. This is where the province would take a role. And then we're going to kind of bring that back to the committee, have to go through that process through the remainder of this year.
If I could just add to that quickly, Chair.
Yes.
So when Director Shaw was asking about the board being involved, it's the board that adopts bylaws, and of course you're dealing with the establishment bylaw. So you are all, as part of the service, part of that bylaw, but the board sort of owns or has authority over the bylaw. So that's why the board will eventually get involved as well.
Director Reese.
To the chair, to clarify, I think that I heard you say that it is likely to cost more to withdraw than it is to continue in the service. No, I not understood.
No.
Okay, I'm hearing staff time, I'm hearing ministry involvement, all these things take time and resources, which all cost money.
Depending on, again, and I think it's having the time to review based on what we hear today, we'd report that there can be costs involved in service withdrawal. That might be, as part of this report mentions, the appointment of an external body to facilitate things. I'm leaning towards, saying don't take this as gospel, but we're likely not to have to incur those external costs. If the majority of people, and there's an agreement to go through this process, yes, it's looking in terms of staff time and a liaison with the ministry, but the cost, as in a specific hard cost, might be fairly minimal in that sense of things. But I think we need to look at the process that we want to go through based on the interest. So don't see it as an additional cost. It's not going to cost more than staying in the service.
Thank you.
Director Grace.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It would be ridiculous for us to involve the province in a service review when 3 out of the 4 participants have already said they're interested in leaving that service and starting something different. Unless we do a nice, clean, we're all singing Kumbaya here, I think it's ridiculous for us to involve the province. Somebody could push that button, I guess, if they want to be annoyed about it. But at the end of the day, we all sit here and we all work in Concord, and it would be silly if we decide to push buttons that make each of us angry with one another.
Thank you. I would agree, and I think that if what I do about government, they would see that and say, okay, 3 participants want out. This is not rocket science in a sense. So.
Yeah, something there. Yeah, so costs can really be incurred when there's actually an appointed facilitator, and that's when the review becomes very contentious. When we do have a lot of dispute and someone comes in who's a third party who can negotiate with everyone and move them through that process. So hopefully that won't necessarily have to happen. That be important. And when you do a formal review, we do have to let the ministry know. It's just part of the process, but they don't necessarily come out. It's if we need that extra support from a facilitator. And it doesn't necessarily mean it would be someone from the government anyway. They might have a list of people that they would appoint. So.
Thank you, Anita. I'll give Director Sharon. I'll then I'll turn.
Thank you. A question regarding, I saw a surrendering of assets if you pull out of a service. And how does that pertain to the current facility operation?
If I may, the process here, and I've got this kind of paragraph pulled up from the next report, should the participants decide to withdraw from the service, the statutory review would then follow. So I think that's where we're headed. Why a service review is also important is to consider all things related to the service, because the service does have assets, the animal control facility. And again, based on, well, where are we going? What are we going to do? Again, all things aside of where the future might lead, there might be 4 independent animal control services in this region. There might be 2 or 3. Do they still need to have a facility? And so on. So there's a number of questions and things that there's a whole list of things for us to think about, which is why this isn't a quick. It may be at the point where here's a course of action we want to take, we're fairly decided on, but the process to go through to make sure that we do everything appropriately is going to take us a number of months, to go through, because there are assets with the system. What do we do in the meantime? What happens when a member of the public calls in, time X, and we're in the middle, we don't have anything new established, we're closing down an old service. So I think, again, based on direction today, coming back in the near future with a report from staff saying, right, this is what we've heard, here's the procedure we now need to go through and the things we need to consider, will help address things like that.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I wasn't saying that we should do a statutory review. I just misread the board of directors portion of the recommendation. I thought we were recommending that we do a review of the services versus board of directors.
Okay. All right, any other questions? I know this has been a long process, but I think we're at least going to see the light. I will certainly, coming from the city's perspective, as of June, whatever we need to do to help our citizens with animal control, our bylaw officers will be able to do that portion of it. So, like Jerry said, I had to go to council anyways, to my council, and I have Monday's my board meeting, so but anyway, go ahead, Jake, you want to finish up and call for lunch.
If I may, sort of just back to the we've got 2 motions, obviously, to receive the report further that provide any direction to staff for future requirements and interest to undertake a service review. I think it will be good to establish a specific motion of what we're going for further forward. Further, before we have any chance to meet again, or certainly put any structure to it, I think that, or I would appreciate that this committee provides some direction to staff for communications externally, because we're going to move into a period post June 27th with no service available. And I think it's going to be important for us to communicate that. At the moment, it is a single service, so it's consistent from Greenwood to Christina Lake. And I think we need a consistent communication to come from this table that we can share for people about what we're going to do next. Again, don't have to decide that today, but I would appreciate a motion that maybe staff directed that we draft something for the participants to review, because we're not going to do it today, and get that approved again before the end of June to release.
Thank you, and I want to take mine, and I'm sure Jay would too, to our councils to help make sure that that's okay, that I'm saying that we'll continue on to provide service past this. So, okay, so the motion has been moved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Any further questions on this?
Sorry, is there any other further direction other than the communications? Please.
Yeah, so motion on service review. Would you like us to be as detailed as recording to who is interested to support a formal review with withdrawal from the service?
Be straight up with that.
Yeah.
So through the chair, we just have to keep in mind timelines or statutory timelines. So within making such a motion, within 60 days, we'd have to start sort of the negotiations. So there's 120 days. I think you have to have your first meeting. I'll have to check on that, but we want to be really careful so that everyone's available to have those meetings. So let me check on that to make sure that. Let me just check here because I don't want to.
And if I may also,
that's 3 months.
As we're going into the summer period, we do have the board meetings both in July and August. So that there is a requirement that we have to be either
120 days. Sorry.
First meeting, board meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. prior to a board meeting or following a board meeting.
Yeah.
Or all their meetings. Okay?
So to capture it, so the motion's going to essentially read that there is a formal review of the services requested with intent to lead to a service withdrawal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be straight up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm tired of reading crap. Let's just be straight up on this.
So the moved and seconded. All those in favor? Jerry. Thank you. Thank you. Next issue. Okay, move on to one more before your lunch. And this is kind of almost repetitive of what we've already just done, correct? So, which is the boundary, we're 7P. Right? Yeah. Which is the economic development services review process. Which is our Boundary Services Committee, I guess, which is the new name for it. So there's two recommendations. Recommendation is that the Boundary Community Development Committee recommend to the board directors that a service review be undertaken in 2025 for the Boundary Economic Development Service pursuant to the service review provisions, including the establishment of bylaw number 1389 in 2009. And then the other recommendation is that the Boundary Community Development Committee recommends to the Board of Directors that the service review be undertaken in 2025 for the Boundary Animal Control Services pursuant to the province of British Columbia's requirements. So let's speak to the first recommendation, which is the Development Services Review for the economic. Your director, you asked for the.
Yes, thank you, Chair Baker. I would like to, I walked you through when I was chair of this committee, an informal service review. I asked you at that time what you were happy with, what you weren't. I didn't really put my whole 2 bits worth into that, because I really believe in working regional. Having said that, I think there's some things that are going to not happen next year. The food hub, for one, will not be on there next year. I intend to support that through Christina Gateway, so just so you know. Food recovery, I have no idea whether you intend to continue to that, but I think it would be silly if we didn't as a group. Having said that, I would like us to have a service review on what exactly does the Boundary Economic Development Service look like? And, I'm more than happy to still pay into things like the Economic Development Commission. There's a couple other things on there I don't believe we need to pay into for myself. And you may agree with me, I don't know. So I would like to have that conversation with this table before I completely tell you that I want out of this service. Because if there's 2 or 3 things that we can go along working together very well on without Christina like paying the lion's share of it, then I'm happy to do so. Having said that, I no longer wish to be the highest input of dollars at this table and have people unhappy. I want us to be happy and I want us to get along. So that's my thoughts there. I'd like to make a motion that we start on an informal service first and see where that goes as a committee and what we together wish to pay for and what we don't. And if we can't agree on some things, then I would probably go down the road of releasing myself from this service. Anyway, okay?
Recommendations on the motions on the floor. Is that we have a secondary for Grace's motion? Sure. Okay, thank you, Director. This is for the first one, which is the Boundary Communities Development Committee.
Got a question for the informal review.
First of all, an informal review, because I want some honesty at the table.
Yeah. Any comments on that? I think this board this committee kind of has morphed over the years, and it's probably good time to have that discussion around the table. And
Chair, I believe corporate officers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
Profile there.
so you actually have a provision in that bylaw for a bylaw-based review every 3 years. That service is supposed to be reviewed, I think it's every 4 years. Good bylaws often have that, so it keeps you from having to go to a formal review. That one happens to have it. So it was overdue anyway. And so it will be informal in the sense that it's not statutory. You know, as Director Grace was talking about, it'll be a conversation amongst yourselves as the service participants. But it just means that you, it's already provided for in the contract. So it's expected anyway.
Overdue, obviously, so, thank you, Sharon. All right, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Director Grace. The recommendation for the animal service, have we not done that in the last round? Did we do that one?
We did, however, this, I think, covers us providing the notice to the board.
Oh, okay.
Formally, so it will also be good.
Okay, so the recommendation, can I have a mover for this one? Thank you, Director Weiss, seconded by Director Grace. Any further questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we're at 12:14, and I think this next portion is probably a pretty given, but seeing it's done. The renaming of the RDPK is Hardy Mountain Duport Village. Director Linda Weiss, do you have a something you'd like to recommend?
I would like to make the motion that we rename Hardy Mountain Dukabor Village to McCorduff Dukabor Village. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Grace. All right, any questions on this? Seeing none, go ahead, Jerry.
Just some background on it.
Oh, okay.
How much background do you want?
What changed? Yeah, pretty short.
So, I was approached initially, the chair of the museum came up with the idea, and I was approached by them, and the McCorduff family, which is a Dukabor family here, was pulled into that discussion. They were enthusiastic about that. At that time, all the discussions had throughout the various communities, and the stakeholders were talked to about it. On the 27th, what day was it? Yeah, 27th Friday, we had a lovely renaming ceremony, lilacs in the air. It was gorgeous. We had over 30 people. We had JJ Berrigan, the surviving members of the McCorduff family. A new sign was unveiled. It was a lovely thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So this will also, we have to add to the motion, this go forward to the board, correct, for approval? Do we need to add that? Yes.
Yes, that will be good for process, just that this is then recommended to the board for approval.
Great. We're not overstepping the powers of our colleagues. All right, so having said that, then it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you.
Thank you, you guys.
And the McCorduff will be fixed. Okay, so no late items?
Quick mention.
Yes.
My name is spelled wrong.
Oh.
Just so you're sorry, Mark. Yes, it happens a lot. Sorry.
All right, but that's the only thing.
Yep.
All right, good. Discussions for further agendas? Yes, go ahead.
If I may, as we're at in June, a number of our committees do not meet in July or August. So in non-meeting August, we defer any urgent items and business through to the board meetings that continue to get held in July or August. So we have the option ahead to give ourselves a July and August break or just an August break. So looking for some direction from the committee, I think would be good. Do we need to meet in July or wish to meet in July?
I think we need to be talking about is these two informals. So. Do we
Tack
want?
it on with the board.
Pardon?
Tack it
Back
on,
on to board meeting?
because we're all pretty much at board, and this takes all this off.
Unless we think
I'll be here for the beginning of July. Yeah.
And if I may, I think anything we could bring back in the beginning of July on these service reviews and things might be a bit of a squeeze to have any significant decisions and things there anyway. So yeah, that is the urgent stuff we're going to be working on, but it's going to take more than a month or two.
Okay, so let's say we'll take July and August off, and if necessary, we'll can call an emergency meeting if we need to have a conversation or something.
And or bring things to the board.
Yeah, yeah, okay,
I so moved.
thank you. Seconded? Grace? All those in favor? Got our holidays, good, okay. Thank you, Dorothy. Any questions of public and media?
Seeing nobody waiting.
Seeing nothing, okay. So I would look for an adjournment. Thank you, Sharon.
Anitra, can I ask you why the education